my background, a little bit about where I think Arlington is at this moment, and a little bit about where I believe we need to go over the next 4 years. So me, I grew up in McLean up the road. I started my career through Teach for America, teaching in Houston, in the part of Houston where Barbara Jordan grew up. Then went on to law school and was a lawyer for local governments in Texas and California. Been back in the Washington area for a decade, and I'm honored to serve Arlington. I'm chair of the school budget committee. I've been vice chair this past year of the Housing Commission of Arlington, and I serve on the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission, which helps plan our future for Arlington as far as land use and our needs. That's me in a nutshell. As far as where we are at this moment, we have a great place to live. 2% unemployment, fifth wealthiest county in the country. We are an inclusive community. We are a welcoming community. And we invest in our schools. We have some of the best schools in the Commonwealth and, in fact, in the country. We're a great place to live. But if we're honest, we're not perfect, and we've got some challenges. In RAFOM, I live just up in the courthouse above the Sushi Rock. Density is a concern that folks have mentioned to me, not just tonight, but at other moments. Countywide, we have a 19.4% commercial vacancy rate. It's been at about 20% for 4 years. There are a lot of reasons why that's the case. I want to focus on addressing it. Here's what I would do. I'd focus on the sectors that are going to grow: cybersecurity, renewable energy technology. I'd leverage our extraordinarily talented workforce, most educated in the country by most measures, to put us to work filling the vacancies, particularly in Crystal City, but also some of those vacancies in office space here in Roslyn. That's not to bring density, that's to address our budget issues so that your and my quality of life can improve. That's got to be priority one. I've been talking about that since the beginning of this campaign. I'm glad that that subject is now getting a little more airtime. That's what we've got to work on. We have to bring down that vacancy rate so that we can invest in our schools. Every year, Stan, whose extraordinary service to our county, awarded the Civic Federation Award, also been RAFOM's president for so long. What an extraordinary example of civic leadership. Stan talks most about your holiday party at Keith. And what you do for kids that night shows you care about schools too. It matters to your grandchildren, your children, but it also matters to our economy. We have to invest in our schools to keep them excellent. We're gaining 800 students a year, and we've got to put money into addressing that challenge. Because if you look honestly at T.C. Williams, no disrespect, but it's too big to educate every child. So schools are a big issue that we work on. I'd love to have your vote on November 6th, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Stan. And to the leadership and membership of both RAFOM and the North Roslyn Civic Association here tonight. You know, as a former officer of my own civic association and the Arlington Civic Federation, I realize how much time and effort goes into planning one of these events, and I really applaud your sustaining the vitality of your civic associations over the years. You know, 4 years ago, you took a chance on me. Against the odds, I leveraged over 30 years of community engagement, deep and broad, and against the odds, I won election twice. That experience and perspective over decades has allowed me to hit the ground running and be an effective county board member from day one. I believe that Arlingtonians want their local officials to concentrate on the nuts and bolts of local government. They expect their government to deliver essential community services, programs, and facilities on time, on budget, effectively, and efficiently. And when you look across the river at Washington's dysfunction, it's clear to me that it really is up to us at the local government, at the local level, where government is closest to the people. I'm keeping my commitments that I pledged 4 years ago. I can't take full credit, but the streetcar is history. And no, I don't favor a streetcar up Lee Highway either. The artisphere is on the tax rolls, and there are no more $1 million bus stops, and the aquatic center has been scaled back. We have an independent county auditor. But let's look ahead. My vision for a community-centered government is focused on 3 key points. Number 1, growing our economy, but also managing that growth. At my leadership, the board has directed the manager to provide ideas for cost-benefit analysis for our development decisions. We need to appreciate the benefits, but we also need to assess the costs and consequences of development on our schools, our infrastructure, our green space, and more. Especially as County Board Liaison to the Roslyn bid, I always appreciate RAFOM's and North Roslyn's perspective on all things Roslyn. Second, greater openness, transparency, and inclusion in how we do our work. We need a no surprises community engagement policy with every voice at the community table reflecting Arlington's diversity from the start. And third, ensuring cost and value drive our conversation. At my urging, the manager is about to launch a new neighborhood conservation and community infrastructure reform group. We need your input. As the only independent, I brought balance to the county board with fresh ideas, but I need your help to keep it there. I ask for your vote on November 6th or before if you're voting early. Thank you.
All right.
We any quick questions for the two county board candidates? In the back, yes, sir.
I'm a senior citizen in Arlington County, and my taxes over the last 10 years have gone way up, way beyond the cost of living. And I want to know what each of you would do to assure that the budget increases in Arlington allow senior citizens to stay in Arlington County, because right now it's becoming very expensive.
So, thanks for that question, Ken. A couple things on our tax and budget challenge looking forward, especially with an eye towards seniors. First of all, Christian Dorsey and I co-chaired the recent county board initiative to go back, scrub, relook at, and recalibrate our senior citizens and disabled community tax relief program. Now that is a specialized program that it's means tested. There are certain asset qualifications and income qualifications. You have to be 65 and above, or you have to be disabled. We expanded the eligibility for that program. We're doing new initiatives to reach out. We've revised the application to make it much more user-friendly. But from a much broader perspective, let me share this with you. You're absolutely right about our property taxes. And after all, when we talk about housing affordability, what you pay in taxes also has a dimension of housing affordability. We want seniors to stay in their own homes if they desire to age in place. We have Culpeper Garden for lower income seniors. I would love to see more seniors housing developed for middle income folks as well. And in fact, right now there is percolating up the planning ranks a senior citizens multi-level of care project on Lee Highway. And let's see how that comes along. More fundamentally, however, we raised the property tax rate $0.015 last year. We gave half of it to Metro, half of it to schools. We absolutely have to invest in our communities. But a 3-2 majority on the board, led by me, Katie Crystal, and Eric Gutschall, voted to hold the line on the property tax rate this year. We decided that we weren't going to advertise the opportunity to raise your property taxes yet again, because we felt that we needed to make the hard choices to scrub the budget and economize and prepare for the more difficult days ahead. Thank you.
So thank you for your question. As you were stating it, it sounded, and it's come again and again when I've knocked doors across this county, that seniors have been very, very concerned about taxes and the burden that's placing. The first door that I actually knocked in January was a African-American couple in Knock, and that's the issue that they raised. So I absolutely understand how concerning it is. There are many double federal employees who are retiring who have said to me, I don't know if we can stay. So I hear and absolutely honor the passion with which you asked the question. John's right on the first question. The real estate tax relief program has been slightly tweaked. It is focused on those who are most in need, and up to some, what you could say, are lower moderate income homeowners. It's an important program, and it serves a lot of seniors in need. I support that program. Second, our tax rates. It is the case that the reason our taxes are going up is because our assessments are going way up. Our rates, and you can look as recently as the Washington Post last week, our rates are lower than every other locality in Northern Virginia. So that's a bit of balance. That's a bit of, a caution that I just think is worth mentioning. The biggest thing we have to do to prevent tax increases over the coming years is grow our economy. If we have a 19.4% commercial vacancy rate, we will lose that 50-50 historic balance between business and residential property taxes. We're at 51.47 this year. And I think that's partly because, frankly, my competitor, but also other members of the board, have not been focused enough on growing business and looking to the next economy. In 1968, we made an extraordinary decision to approve a $54 million bond. We have to continue to do those sorts of smart decisions so that we can keep property taxes low and address your needs as well as those of other citizens.
Question?
I have one. To kind of piggyback on what you said, what about affordable housing in general? I work for a general contractor, and we work for developers a lot. And like in Roslyn alone, the RCA building is being developed into 2 luxury high-rises. 1501 Wilson Boulevard is also being considered luxury high-rises. What about the middle class who wants to be on the metro line but can't afford it? So how would each candidate tackle affordable housing?
Sure, so I'll start on this one. I have a volunteer who started in Colonial Village and then saved up enough to buy a home in East Falls Church. Question is, could that work now in Arlington? Can the economic ladder work? For those of us who, I'm now 45, as you're getting older, you look back and you love to own your own home. But does that work for other folks? And I think that's a basic question about Arlington's soul that I think we're going to have to debate and figure out over the next years. I was on the Affordable Housing Task Force. There are 2 problems that you alluded to. One is missing middle, or 80 to 120% of area median income. We're a very wealthy community, so that's for a household $80,000 to $120,000. For those folks, many of them still cannot afford to buy a home. Those are teachers, firefighters, police officers. Those are the people that make sure America is already great. We have to honor them with ideas, creativity. One I have is from Richmond, the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust there. Half of the value of your appreciation in the home goes to the homeowner. Half of it stays with the cooperative nonprofit so that other people can buy a home in the future. That's an idea we should try. That's the sort of creativity we need on the missing middle. My colleague, or not colleague, excuse me, apologies, one of the members of the county board, Eric Dutchall, endorsed me last week. He's been a leader on the missing middle. This is a fundamental issue about whether the American dream is real in Arlington County. Home ownership is part of that dream, and we have to think creatively and be relentless on finding solutions. There's a whole separate question on folks 80% or lower. We set a goal of 600 approximately affordable rental units per year. We've been below 300. We've got to do better. I'm not saying necessarily I can get us to 600, but every family that's renting that has a chance to stay in Arlington makes the American dream more real in Arlington.
A couple things on affordable housing. Number one, I'm strongly committed to it. I have a few nuances to my approach. I served, I've been involved in Arlington County for over 30 years, and about 2 decades ago I joined the Housing Commission and contributed greatly on the Housing Commission to affordable housing solutions. But we need a multi-pronged approach, and it's a multifaceted debate. Number one, we need to keep AHIF, our Affordable Housing Investment Fund, strong. But number two, we also have to look at new housing forms. Right now, we have underway an initiative to allow duplex owners, triplex owners, to be more adaptable in terms of upgrading their property, bumping out, and so forth, because these properties in older parts of the county are what they consider to be non-conforming. And so if you want to bump out and add a porch on the front, you have to take care of a non-conforming use on the back. So we're trying to get away from that. and be more adaptable so we don't encourage tear downs. We need to look at tiny houses. We need to look at other elements like micro rental units, accessory dwelling units, and that type of thing. But let me share something with you about the quandary we have with respect to accessory dwelling units. So we liberalized, with my full support, having an accessory dwelling unit in the basement of your own home within the four corners of the footprint of your home. The question is, should we allow accessory dwelling units out the back? If you do that, you are certainly helping to have that taxpayer have a more affordable home because they'll be able to use that income from the ADU to help pay their taxes. And as I said, by the way, property taxes are an element of housing affordability for everybody. But beyond that, if you have an accessory dwelling unit, right now there is nothing to stop you from deciding to convert it to a homestay Airbnb. And then how affordable really is that to somebody in Arlington who needs that housing? That's the type of thing that we're going to be debating. Thank you.
Yes.
I agree with you that we do need more commercial tenants in Arlington, particularly as I look at all the vacancies here, right here in Roslyn. It's one thing to say you need it, give me some specific ideas, how you're going to make it happen with those commercial folks, particularly in view of all of the federal government reducing its footprint and the commercial world downsizing, going to telecommuting, hoteling, and so forth.
Is it, you know, start with me?
Sure. So it's absolutely true that one of our biggest challenges is bringing down our commercial vacancy rate. And as has been said, you know, we've had a 50-50 equilibrium for a long time, and now the balance has shifted a little bit because of our commercial vacancy rate. We topped out at 22. It's actually better now. It's better now than it has been 3 or 4 years ago when I joined the board. It's bumped around between 18 and 19%. So we have to continue our aggressive approach to retention of existing businesses as well as recruiting new businesses. We have had successes. We have used, in a very conservative but very strategically placed fashion, economic development incentive funds. Just down the block, 1812 North Moore, Nestle, 750 new jobs paying an average of over $100,000 a year. Gerber. Dr. Smith, is that you?
It is.
You were a Gerber baby, weren't you? So, you know, so Nestle, Gerber, here's something else. We're not just a company town anymore. We are wooing trade associations. So, for example, the March of Dimes came over to Arlington, actually in Crystal City, from the district. We are wooing trade associations. The Grocery Manufacturers Association recently came over from the district. The Personal Absorbance Product Council, whatever that is, came over from the district to Crystal City. So we are doing those businesses. We are diversifying our economy. If you go to our website, our economic development webpage, you're going to see that we are making a special appeal for med tech, green tech, high tech, cybersecurity. But the other thing we need to do is improve the business climate of Arlington overall. We need planning and zoning protocols that are flexible and adaptable. And we need a tax structure and a regulatory scheme that works for business, small and large. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. I do think specifics are important. First, I think just outlining the day that I would spend as a county board person. There is Arlington Economic Development. The job of the board is not to be in nuts and bolts, primarily. The job of the board is to set policy, offer vision, and help us reach that vision. So the bulk of my day, every day, would be seeing how Arlington Economic Development and the county manager wanted me to work relentlessly to help grow businesses that are here, like O-Power, which became part of Oracle, energy efficiency software that grew to like 250, I believe, employees. That's the sort of day-to-day work specifically that I would seek to focus the time on, as opposed to overly being in the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day. I'm not saying they're not worthwhile, but that's not where the bulk of your time should be. 2.5 weeks ago, there was a convention here on cybersecurity. Our county board needed to be part of that, seeking to develop relationships, because as you think about Silicon Valley, Austin, Boston's tech community, it's relationships that help enable companies to come and stay. That's true in Manassas, where they just landed a tech firm to stay and a 10-year investment. So building those relationships should be the focus of your time. I agree with small incentives. I agree that our approach should not be give away the store. We need to keep Arlington values. But we also need to be aware that if the cost benefit is there and there are clear community benefits, then we can't turn down the possibility of growth. Some time ago, the board, not 8, 10 years ago, maybe 12, said no to a defense contractor just because they were a defense contractor. I'm a Democrat, but that's crazy. We can't do that sort of thing. So specifically, spending the time focusing on the sectors. I'm glad John's mentioned them. I've been mentioning them in every debate. He's got them right. They're the same ones as Arlington Economic Development has. But we need to focus in those areas. Make it a good place to come and a place you want to invest. That's what I'll do.
Yes.
Housing affordability topic, but also connected to transit. A lot of young people particularly can't afford to own a car and then also live in the metro corridor. And so a lot of them live on Columbia Pike, Lee Highway, or Glebe. And so what would you do to improve public transit into other areas such as DC or Tyson's in a fast and effective way that doesn't just make you transfer money to Amazon?
It's a great question. So I think we need to be data-driven on our transportation policy, and we need to look, there is obviously some job growth in Tyson's. We need to stay competitive here, but we also need to say, what are the routes that young people, millennials, need to want it to be attracted to staying in this community? There are a lot of, I fully agree, I'm not relitigating the streetcar. I think it's done. But I do think that there were promises made on Columbia Pike after the streetcar, and there needs to be an urgency to following through. If you're in this community in RAFOM, you care about equity. You show it with your party for Key School. So we need to make good on those promises along Columbia Pike with more urgency than I've seen to this point. I also think that we need to think about what factors draw millennials to this community. And it is transportation, but it's also facilities, right? If you think about comparing the Wharf versus Roslyn, we have to know that we're in a newly competitive environment, and we have to think about what is going to attract and keep millennials and companies that are heavy in millennials, like gaming industry companies, for example, not betting, but video game. That is a sector that is in Crystal City. So we've got to work on the whole package of investments and be data-driven on transportation so that we provide for the demand that is there, we provide the routes that are necessary. And that's the combination that we need to be thinking about every day so that we can outcompete Tyson's and DC, which when I was growing up in McLean, weren't as competitive as they are now.
So Nicole, several aspects to your question. First of all, I'm a daily Metro rider and ART bus rider. I take transit every day. I'm highly invested personally in Arlington's circulatory system. We cannot let Metro fail. Now, they say it's back to good. As a daily rider, I think pretty much it is. I want to get it back to the way it was originally. That's going to be a challenge, but we have to keep our investment in Metro. We also need managerial and fiscal reforms to Metro, and I applaud my colleague Christian Dorsey, who has our seat on the Metro board. He is investing a whole lot of time on the Metro board, and we're making progress. We've had Paul Weidefeld, the general manager of Metro, in before the county board at a number of transportation-related work sessions. We've quizzed him on all sorts of things in terms of getting Metro's house in order. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be some tough negotiations with the transit union and the laborers and other unions with respect to Metro, but we're going to get through it. Number two, we have to make sure that our ART bus system is strong. We've had service lapses, frankly, and we had an audit of our ART bus contractor, and they've fallen down on the job. So what are we doing? We're going out with a new RFP, to hire a new Metro operator for our art buses. Columbia Pike Transit. We're not litigating the streetcar. There may be a few voices who would still like to do that. I always felt that it didn't make sense from either a development or a transit perspective. We are committed to improving transit along Columbia Pike. It's going much slower than we would like because why? Number one, funding, but also number two, because Columbia Pike is also a Metro bus corridor, we have to coordinate with Metro. When I have business or see constituents on Columbia Pike, I take that 16Y bus. Advertising on Art Bus. I led the initiative to do that, and it was a 3-2 vote. Thank you.
Tom?
There's been some recent proposals for changes in our road patterns here in Roslyn. Would you comment on those, please?
Certainly. So I'm well aware. I actually attended the first open house, I guess it was over at Le Meridian about a year and a half ago on Roslyn Transit. That meeting was hosted by the Business Improvement District. And what we're trying to do in Roslyn is be faithful as much as we can to the new Roslyn sector plan. However, the concept one, which was socialized and drafted by county staff, it's very clear that that has a whole lot of problems. Congestion, traffic conflicts, pedestrian, bike, car, pedestrian, and you know, we haven't talked about scooters tonight yet. Maybe there'll be a question about scooters. So, concept, you have, I believe, until October 12th, if I'm not mistaken, to comment on that transit, or I should say the new traffic patterns in Roslyn. We want to make sure that we get it right. Another aspect of this, of course, is ultimately the projection is, or at least the question mark, and we would love your input on this, is whether or not we should be two-weighing Lynn Street and Fort Myer Drive. We need your input on that. So let's work together on making sure that traffic and transit and transportation work not just for the commuters who come into Roslyn every day, but also to the people who live here.
So thank you for your question. There was an article just today on it. I want to get to it. I just want to touch a little bit just on the question of Metro. The bulk of John's points on Metro I agree with. I think that Paul Wiedefeld is doing a good job. We need to make sure that it is consistently excellent as it was for a long period of time. At another debate, we'll see if we both follow through on this promise, but John and I agreed to a debate on scooters. I think we'd have to wear helmets in that case. But I can tell you that's a whole separate issue. 3 thoughts on your question. First, since I'm up right above Sushi Rock, that tunnel, I use it occasionally. I don't think many people, frankly, use that tunnel. But the amount of cost, in my view, that would be required, and the construction that would be required to undo that tunnel, I think in our current budget, that does not strike me as the right approach at the moment. There are also numerous estimates of larger time, the congestion that would be there. I think it is absolutely important that we get those critical bike linkages so that people can bike, but I also feel that there is a sense sometimes if you impose in too great a way a car-free diet on folks, people react against that. And I think that we need to not go too far in that direction. A couple other thoughts. October 12th is very soon, so that raises some additional concerns. And I do think that on the whole, this is an area that concerns me. I think that I highly recommend filling out the survey by the 12th. But I do think this is something where more thought needs to be put forward. Two-weighing some of the streets might make sense. But I do think you also need to look at the amount of congestion that would result. And getting across to Georgetown is a critical issue. Those commute times, I think, is short-sighted to impose our ideas without thought.
Yes.
Hi, a quick preamble. So Chattanooga, Tennessee has a community broadband, and it's rated as the top internet service provider in the country and has the highest customer satisfaction. Arlington County has big network of fiber that is essentially bought and paid for and doing very little. What are some bold and creative ideas we can have for our county, like a community broadband initiative or a community bank, which might provide equities to young people and seniors and middle and lower income folks?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question. This is something that has come up. When I taught, my students didn't have access to broadband, and that changed their world. And that's even some time ago. I taught in the 90s. So this is a critical issue, and we have to address it. And I do have some concerns about, in the Housing Commission, we looked at the dark fiber approach and trying to get, I've actually looked at cable franchise agreements and lived to telegraph it. I don't think that that's a joy. I do think that we need creativity. The community bank idea is something I would want to follow and pursue. There is the Dillon rule, which is a limit, but that doesn't mean it's a permanent barrier. I absolutely think we need to think about ways where we can work with the private sector and work where the Dillon rule may not apply. I'd have to look at it. May not apply to make sure that fast Wi-Fi is ubiquitous. It's critical. 5G is the next generation, and it's going to take different towers. This is a critical part that I'm glad you asked about, because this is an additional part of economic development policy that we have to pursue running. This needs to be a focus. I lived in Austin. Former boss who was head of Google Fiber it's not just Chattanooga. There are lots of communities that have made this available at fast speeds, and it totally changes the economic reality for the communities that pursue it. So that has to be a priority, along with the 5 sectors that I've named and John reinforced, or John also mentioned tonight. But I'm a little worried about whether dark fiber is the right answer in our case. We've been working on it a long time. I'm not sure. I think maybe we need to be pursuing public-private partnerships to invest in 5G that may be a little outside of our dark fiber network. But both approaches, that needs to be a centerpiece of our economic development policy, because it's not just you and I who are going to work from home 1 or 2 days a week. It's 70% of our workforce if we do it right, and we get a new president who doesn't say you can't work from home if you're in the federal government.
Yeah, so that is a good point in terms of one of the reasons why we do have that economic vacancy rate and that singular challenge is because of teleworking and co-working, and people are working from home because frankly you can boot up everywhere, including now spaces just down the street with your computer. But dark fiber as well as internet connectivity is absolutely essential. We showcase our dark fiber network to businesses who either want to expand in Arlington or who we're trying to recruit to Arlington. That's number 1. Number 2, the county board, I think it was probably about a year ago, we provided free internet service, rapid internet service to the folks at the Arlington Mill affordable housing project on Columbia Pike. This was a great boon to them for kids at that center, and we're hoping to be able to do that with more affordable housing.